All right, let's talk about these Edmonton Oilers. They hire Stan Bowman as GM, and you know him famously from being GM of the Blackhawks from 2009 to 2021. He resigned in 2021 after an independent investigation found that he and other members of the organization handled allegations from a player who said they were sexually assaulted by a video coach during the 2010 playoff run. These allegations were handled poorly, mishandled per the investigation. Stan Bowman at that point resigned. He has been suspended from the NHL since then and was reinstated July 1st of this year. He replaces Ken Holland as the Oilers GM. CEO Jeff Jackson had been making moves and doing a great job for the Oilers this offseason. We talked about this possibility, and I was not in favor of it. And now that it has happened, I am still not in favor of it. I don't get it. And obviously there's baggage and there's non-hockey things that come with this. From a overall standpoint, I just would not have done this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general overarching sentiment from myself is that, like, I don't really get it. You mentioned earlier that you wanted it to stay in the family, and I agree with that. I agree that, like, the Oilers right now have this contained thing that is working. And Jeff Jackson, incredible offseason as the non-GM, I thought. And the thing about Stan Bowman is that, like, I do believe in second chances, and I do believe in, like, you don't have to keep him away from the NHL forever. Like, if you disagree, then we disagree on that. Like, I do believe in second chances. I don't know why anybody would rush to hire Stan Bowman as their GM, because my thing is, like, I don't know if Stan Bowman's a good GM. Obviously, his body of work with the Chicago Blackhawks, overall pretty good. But you know what he was handed? A pretty fucking good roster. And you know what was terrible? His end of tenure moves with the Chicago Blackhawks. He did some things well, but fuck, he made a lot of desperate moves at the end of his tenure as Chicago Blackhawks GM that set that team back quite a bit. And I just don't know if, like, the overall body of work from Stan Bowman as a general manager suggests that he is a very good general manager.
Correct. And that's not to say that one thing is more important than the other, but you're hiring this person to be the GM. If you want to get into all the stuff that happened with the Blackhawks, which needs to be taken seriously. And quite frankly, a lot of people, I don't want to do the on both sides thing, but a lot of people online don't take it seriously in saying, like, oh, you're never going to give the guy a second chance. And then other people saying, like, oh, well, he did things that he just straight up did not do, like writing Brad Aldrich letters of recommendations. Like people are going to yell about all that and the various mess that was the Blackhawks organization at that time, and him fucking up something pretty royally. Why are you in a hurry to hire that in that conversation when I cannot remember the last time Stan Bowman was a good GM? And it's terrible to say, like, if they're better at the job, you put up with more of the noise, but that is how everything works.
Yeah.
That's how sports work. That's how organizations work. That's what they'll do. They'll put up with that if they're great at the job. We don't know if Stan Bowman's great at the job. Since they last won the Cup, he has reminded me, quite frankly, of another former Oilers, president.
Peter Chiarelli.
Peter Chiarelli, after the Bruins won the Cup, which was, yeah, you're very good at getting the team that's almost there where it needs to be and making some savvy moves. But then once you're trying to keep it together and guys are starting to make a lot of money,
you love your guys way too much.
And that's when it gets difficult. And that's when Chiarelli in Boston kind of let go of the rope. That's definitely when Bowman in Chicago let go of the rope. Sean, if you could throw up the full screen of some notable moves we put together that he made after they won their most recent Stanley Cup, the Blackhawks in 2015. He signed Brent Seabrook to that huge 8-year contract, which everybody knows was kind of the beginning of the end for the Blackhawks because money was so tight. A big one in 2017, and this was also money related, but he traded a young Artemi Panarin for Brendan Saad. Remember, they had to get rid of Saad because he'd outpriced himself. And then they brought him back because Panarin was going to outprice himself on his next contract. But still, bad trade. Should have gone about that a different way, gotten more long-term young building blocks. The Hjalmarsson for Connor Murphy thing. And then at the end, this was the biggest case of just trying to get one last kick at the can, trading multiple picks for Seth Jones, signing him to that huge contract, which we discussed. That contract isn't as bad as people make it out to be, but that was the wrong move for that team to make at the time. That was a team that was clearly entering a rebuild, and instead they made a move for a team that was maybe a piece away.
Yeah, like he has all of this screams just trying to keep a current window open rather than making some difficult decisions and saying goodbye to players that you like in order to open another window, in order to have a second kick at a second championship window. He just kept trying to keep the current one open and feed what a lot of people were calling the dynasty. And it's just, there were a lot of desperate moves and misevaluations that set the team back for a long time. And that's what you don't want from a general manager. Hey, thanks for watching the channel.
We appreciate everybody who checks out our stuff, but 80% of our viewers are not actually subscribed to this page, so if you could smash that subscribe button, it would go a very long way for us.
The more subscriptions we have, the more visibility we get from YouTube, which allows us to do more.
So press that button. Thank you. So they get a general manager about whom I'm not very excited. I don't know that he's necessarily going to go out and make a bunch of terrible moves right now. The Oilers don't have a lot of moves to make right now anyway. Their biggest one is to sign Leon Draisaitl. So if they can turn that around, they can sign Leon Draisaitl next week, then suddenly vibes are great again in Edmonton. But boy, your vibes and your performance are higher than they've been in years and years and years. But you then add in one of the biggest scandals in hockey history, and all of this for what? For a GM who we think was really good 15 years ago, 14 years ago?
Maybe.
No, wasn't good 9 years ago? 8, 7, 6, 5?
Yeah.
That was that was the sentence I was trying to say. Things were going great for you. Everybody approved of you. And sorry, I said everybody. A lot of people approved of you and were excited about your Stanley Cup run and your offseason. And you do this for what? I don't get it.
I also don't think that, I think it's might be overstating it that this is going to throw people off long term. Like, this could be a situation where everybody's up in arms for a couple weeks and it's the story of the moment. And when the season starts, a lot of people might fucking forget that Stan Bowman is the GM of the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, I mean, fans don't quit. That's
right.
They just don't do that. Unless you're Sean. Sean was an Oilers fan and quit because Chris Knobloch said something inflammatory about the Bills.
I generally don't know from a zoomed out perspective if people were as on board with the Oilers vibes from a zoomed out perspective, because they had Corey Perry, they had Evander Kane. There are the elements of villains that throw people off the Oilers to begin with. Mm-hmm. Even Connor McDavid. For some reason, there are people that just love to hate Connor McDavid or have an adversity to Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's, if you're the best of all time, it's always going to happen.
Right. And I don't get that. I really don't get why people look for reasons to be like, fuck that guy. Whether it's LeBron, LeBron has his weird, quirky personality things where you're like, why are you lying about everything kind of deal? But watching LeBron fucking rocks.
Greatest basketball player of all time. If you say anything else, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Watching LeBron rocks. Watching Connor McDavid rocks. I like watching fucking awesome players. So I don't know. It's the Bowman thing, I think unnecessary is the biggest word that you could go to. And especially for the Oilers, who have a really highly sought after GM vacancy. If I don't want to besmirch the Columbus Blue Jackets or something, but if the Columbus Blue Jackets hired Stan Bowman, you could maybe wrap your head around it a bit more than like a premium, highly sought after vacancy, and to do so almost immediately after he's cleared and reinstated. Like, I'm more surprised that Stan Bowman got a job before Joel Quenneville. Like, Joel Quenneville, I think, has a better case to be to say he was an objectively good coach versus Stan Bowman as an objectively good GM.
I think Stan Bowman is viewed as more contrite with the whole thing.
Like,
though.
complicit?
Contrite.
Is that the opposite?
Contrition is to like feel responsibility and like sadness over.
Yeah. So the thing that came out
because
a few weeks ago,
feeling or expressing remorse affected by guilt. Quenneville's thing's more of like the like. Well, look, we fucked up, but I didn't know what to do in that whole thing.
Yeah, maybe. There was the thing that came out a couple weeks ago from Sheldon Kennedy from the Respect Group, who wrote an essay about Stan Bowman and his involvement in the Respect Group, which, if anybody doesn't know, like the Respect Group says they've trained over 2.5 million Canadians on their roles and responsibilities to prevent bullying, abuse, harassment, and discrimination. They focus on accountability, on psychological safety on and off the ice. Sheldon Kennedy said Bowman volunteered nearly full-time hours to help lead 3 charters in Canada, one of them being in Edmonton. And this was an important and interesting note. In September 2023, Kyle Beach attended the workshop co-facilitated by Stan Bowman, and the two met afterwards and cleared the air, and apparently they're on fairly decent terms. Like, that's an interesting thing to note. I don't think it expunges Stan Bowman's involvement in all of this, but I also don't think that – I think a lot of people are laying a ton of fault, or like the majority of fault, at Stan Bowman's, and I think there are – a lot of layers in, in what
there's
went wrong
way more
in
nuance
Chicago.
to this, and I've heard and been told too many fucking things about how the John McDonough thing was run in Chicago, where everything went through that guy. You hear something, you send it up the ladder, you send it to him, and this was in Stan Bowman's statement that he put out. Let me find it. In 2021, when he resigned, he said, 11 years ago, while serving my first year as general manager, I was made aware of potential inappropriate behavior by a then video coach involving a player. I promptly reported the matter to then president and CEO, who committed to handling the matter. I learned this year that the inappropriate behavior involved a serious allegation of sexual assault. I relied on the direction of my superior that he would take appropriate action. Looking back, now knowing he did not handle the matter promptly, I regret assuming he would do so. That sounds like passing the buck, yes.
And
but
that's a problem, obviously.
Everybody who has said anything about how that organization has has said, like, you don't do shit on your own. You take it to John McDonough, and he takes it from there. Now, John McDonough is long gone, out of the picture, isn't going for any other sorts of jobs, so that's all clean and convenient that the blame can be distributed evenly everywhere else. But that's all I know, is that that's how things were done back then, which was you take it to McDonough and you don't take it anywhere else. Obviously, Bowman should have said fuck the rules there
happens,
and gone.
To do something.
Well, I mean, obviously just go right to HR. But they waited, I think, it was May 23rd until June 14th before anybody did anything. So obviously they fucking handled that horribly. However, and I don't want to say like in defense of Stan Bowman or just like the idea that he was like the mastermind of some big cover up is incorrect. He did something horrible that rightfully got him a very long suspension. He was not some evil mastermind, and he also was not some great GM. So I don't get why this is happening.
We all silly like the mayor.